Howdy, guys. Attorney Walter Knott. Let me go ahead and fix that backdrop real quick. Okay. Perfect. Very good. So let's go ahead and go into this real quick. One of the big problems that was happening over the past couple of years was that we were watching, specifically disability attorneys, retirement-based individuals, what was going to happen with essentially this whole retirement problem. Were there enough funds to go ahead and cover retirement going way into the future? And what we realized was that the Social Security Administration basically does not have enough funds to pay out the full amount of benefits that you guys are currently receiving for retirement benefits past around 10 years from now. Now, when I reported this, a lot of people were angry and upset with me because they felt that I was putting fear in the heart of people. Instead of making a bunch of fourth stimulus, turkey stimulus, Christmas stimulus videos, instead of doing that, I corrected essentially what was going on in the YouTube channels. And I said, look, here's the reality. This is where bills are at. They're not being passed for those stimulus items. So I gave you no BS videos. I went into it. And I said, here's the BS. Watch out for the BS. Okay. Janelle Jewel, howdy. Good evening. I need you to understand something. A lot of you did not take me fully seriously when I told you that it would take about 10 years for people to see a significant reduction in their retirement benefits. What do I mean by this? We will, in about 10 years, not be able to pay out the full retirement that everybody's accustomed to receiving every single month. Additionally, when I first came out with this, people were upset and then transitioned to nowadays. I wanted to go ahead and provide for you essentially articles written on the exact topic of this that everybody seems to be ignoring. And that is because it's not a popular issue to deal with. Trump didn't deal with it. Obama's didn't deal with it. The Bushes didn't deal with it. Who else? And sorry, my lights aren't on up there, but I'll have it more well lit in the next video. So the bottom line is I'm going to use these guys because when I told you about it last time, a lot of you downvoted it because it was like I was the devil. I was the evil person for telling you. So I'm going to use these articles to explain to you mathematically how in trouble retirement people are going to be. And please remember, the 2021 statistics are not out yet, which will likely reduce retirement around another year on top of that. So instead of the benefits being reduced after just 10 years, it might be around 9 years. CBS News, Social Security benefit faced reduction a year earlier than expected due to pandemic, September 3rd, 2021. Let's go into it. Social Security and Medicare, the government's two biggest benefit programs, remain under intense financial pressure with the retirement of millions of baby boomers and a devastating pandemic. Social Security will be unable to pay full benefits starting in 2034, a year earlier than previously forecast due to impact on the crisis. And right now, that's not actually accurate. It's looking more like 2033. And remember, that's with things in the middle. If things continue to get bad, as it has been over the past year and a half, etc., unfortunately, it'll be even worse than this. That's according to a new report from the program's trustees released Tuesday, which moved up by 1 year the date for the depletion of the Social Security's reserves. Medicare is still expected to exhaust its reserves in 2026, the same date as estimated last year. I want to point something out. All these documents are based on chief actuary-based information from the Social Security Administration, Stephen Goss. He's a really good guy, not a political individual. He's an actuarial type. He's just an accountant. The pandemic's hit to the economy when unemployment rocketed to almost 15%, has rippled through the nation, prompting some older workers to take early retirement, while millions of women with children have left the workforce due to remote school or lack of daycare. At the same time, fewer adults are opting to have children, depressing the birth rate. A shrinking workforce may also pose trouble in the longer term for the Social Security program since it relies on payroll tax to finance benefits. What they're saying here is they need more workers. We, the cattle, have to go and work and pay more taxes. That's the reality of this. There's no way around that. We need more human beings working. That's what's going on here. Another thing I'd like to point out, this whole COVID thing didn't cause the red alarms to just poof out of nowhere. The red alarms have existed for an extremely long time. Okay? The Obamas, they knew about this. The Bushes, they knew about this. The Clintons, they knew about this. This was a problem way before this whole COVID situation. They're just saying this now with COVID because it's like an easy blame scenario. But the reality is, as the politicians are going, this has been an issue where all COVID has done is reduce the amount of payout time for retirement by 1 year. That's it. That's all COVID did to the amount of money we have for retirement, which means that instead of being, 11 years down the line, it's only 10 years down the line. Think about that for a moment. Just think about that. Okay, we're going into 2022. It's realistically going to run out around 2020 or 2032, 2033. That's more realistic of an approach based on this. And remember, it's all based off of like how many people are likely to take. We don't know, yada yada. At the end of the day, it always seems to cost a bit more than we actually put it down in the Excel sheet. So I just want you to be aware. Once again, you can beat up on me and hate on me, but I would rather you guys be aware. A fourth stimulus, very tiny amount of money. Reduction in your retirement on a monthly basis, a lot of money. The finances of both programs have been significantly affected by the pandemic and the recession of 2020. That's not true. It's only 1 year that really took away from the retirement trust fund, the OASI based trust, the OASI trust fund. So it really actually wasn't a major significant effect. But when you look at that 1 year that it changed from instead of being 11 years down the line to just 10 years down the line, you're talking billions upon billions of dollars. Employment earnings, interest rates, and economic growth plummeted in the second quarter of 2020 after the pandemic hit the United States. Even so, the report added that given the unprecedented level of uncertainty, there was no consensus on what the long-lasting effects of the pandemic will be on the two benefit programs. So what they're saying here is there's a problem, and we don't even know how deep this well is going to go. Fewer people are having children amid the pandemic, a trend that will continue until 2023, the report forecasts. The birth rate is expected to drop to 1.4 children per woman this year and rise to 1.62 in 2022. By 2023, the rate should recover to 1.71 children per woman, the rate it would have been without the pandemic, the trustees said. Remember, men, we're cattle. They measure essentially how many kids we can make and how much work they can get out of us. That's how it works. I know that sounds disturbing, but that's how it works. Granted, the U.S. birth rate has been declining for decades, reaching a 42-year low in 2020. That has long-term implications for the labor market and retirement programs, with some demographics describing it as a crisis. The reason why they're worried about this stuff is that basically a lot of the workers are not having kids. That's a big problem because workers tend to produce worker kids. You have non-workers that are generation to generation to generation to generation on programs that are essentially not making money to pay payroll taxes to pay for these programs. So what we're running into is a problem of the workers that aren't making enough money to feel financially secure to have kids are essentially not making future breadwinning kids. Now, they were hedging on this changeover, which helped them a lot, which was that women were going into the workforce a lot, and now they had all these extra women working and things like that. But now they've run through that benefit. Now they're stuck with men and women working, and how many of these kids are going to actually work going forward? How many of them are going to be on programs versus how many of them are going to be paying into programs? That's what's so scary to these individuals. Meanwhile, death rates for people over 15 years old rose more than 16% last year due to pandemic and will remain elevated through 2023. The report said 78 cents for every $1. When the Social Security Trust Fund is depleted, the government will be able to pay 78% of scheduled benefits, the report said. So just, imagine if you want to know what that essentially equates to, what you do is the easy math problem is this. You have basically 78 cents over 1, okay? And then $1. So you put 0.78 over 1.00, and then you would have on this side of the math equation basically X, and then you would have X over what you're currently getting for your retirement, or what you expect your retirement to be in that year based on the cost of living adjustment. You take what you're expecting to essentially make in that year going forward, you multiply it by the 0.78, you then go ahead and divide that whole thing by your one figure, and that will give you what your new 78 cents on the dollar rate will be. Most of you aren't in the math. If you want me to know, or want to know, we can always do it later during the live session. When the Social Security Trust Fund is depleted, they'll only be able to pay 78% of the benefits. Because a reduction in benefits of that magnitude would cause a political uproar, massive political uproar, throwing people out of office political uproar, bigger than January 6th of an uproar, which we don't want. We want basically people to be happy and secure in their retirement. It is likely that Congress would find ways to recover the lost benefits, either by hiking the payroll taxes paid by current workers or by increasing government borrowing to cover the shortfall. Now, as we all know, originally, when we look at people who supported Social Security benefits, we know that President Biden, was anti-Social Security benefits. He voted against them many times. We know that Trump put in Commissioner Saul, who made it much more difficult for people to get onto disability benefits by changing. The major ones were the evidence rule of weight of evidence for each physician, the 12.0s, the 1.0 musculoskeletals, things like that. And what happened was, and I don't know if he could do this or whatever, but President Trump at that time was talking about this idea where he was going to get rid of the payroll tax and just pay for our $1 trillion a year, Social Security benefits through the general taxes that we have. Whether or not he could pull that off, who the heck knows? I mean, that seems kind of unicornish, Pegasus-ish. Who knows? Okay. Government economic experts who prepared the Social Security report said recent increases in inflation mean the cost of living adjustment COLA for 2022 will approach 6%. It did, 5.9%. A whopping jump from the 1.3% COLA awarded for this year, which was in 2021. But recipients will have to wait for that bump because the Social Security Administration adjusts its payments only 1 year at a time. That means seniors and other Social Security beneficiaries would receive the increase until January 2022. But remember, if you look at the consumer index versus the cost of living adjustment, you'll see the consumer index going way up. Food's going to become super expensive. And as a result of that, it's not going to be a good day because you guys won't be able to afford it. That's the problem. All right, so let's keep reading. The Medicare Part B premium for outpatient coverage is projected to rise by $10 a month in 2022. We now know that that's not accurate. The new report, which has been delayed for a number of months, presented the government's efforts to assess the impact of last year's pandemic and recession on, we'll finish CBS, then we'll go to this other one. The U.S. economy lost financial health of the two big benefit programs. The U.S. economy lost, here's an important one, a staggering 22.4 million jobs in March and April of 2020 as the pandemic forced businesses to close or cut their hours and the economy went into recession. But the recession turned out to be brief and hiring has bounced back as economic growth has resumed. Employers have brought back 16.7 million jobs since April 2020, but that again still leaves the labor force 5.7 million jobs below where it was before the pandemic hit. So what they're saying is they're worried. They're worried because, and keep in mind, guys, I can't read all the chat stuff and do this, but I'll check out the chat stuff a little bit later. They're worried because we, the cattle, are not going and working like we, the cattle, are supposed to be able to pay for all these programs. And what's upsetting to these politicians is that we, the cattle, are now starting to wake up to what our rights and freedoms should be because we want to live a better life than constantly working and paying high taxes. So the problem inherent is this. They're spending massive amounts, right? 2.1 trillion on this. They want to do even more on that. And that's just putting more debt on top of our heads, thereby reducing the worth of our US dollar, our tender. And unfortunately, as a result of that, our US tender is now worth significantly less, causing the cost of living adjustment to go up because hyperinflation is now out of control. And now, unfortunately, we're facing 78% of payments output within the next 10 years, but it likely will be less for retirements. So if you were expecting to get a retirement check and your 100% payment was this, do 78% worth of 78% of that. And that equates to, you could just multiply 0.78 by that number. And that would essentially equate to what you would be getting. That's terrible. That's horrible. So I just want to explain to you guys, that's what's going on. A lot of you beat up on me as pushing this anger and how could you make us fearful and things like that. Guys, why am I one of the few people to acknowledge that retired people in 10 years are going to get 78% of what they're supposed to? Because it's going to run out. I mean, I can make more stimulus videos. They seem to make people happy and smile and feel good in their tummy, but they're BS. None of these stimulus checks are coming through the committees to actually be passed for these holiday seasons. Makes you think about what the politicians think about us Americans. USA Today, another group. Robert Powell published 6:01 a.m., July 18, 2021. How much of a cut to Social Security benefits can you expect based on your age? This is an older one and not as accurate. Come 2034, we now know it's more around 2032, 2033. Incoming revenues will be enough to pay about 76% of scheduled Social Security benefits, a 2020 Social Security Administration trustee report predicts. This one's saying 76%. It actually might be a little less than that. It might be around 75. Given that, how might different generations plan for this? So they're now saying you need to plan for your retirement not being the full amount that the government's supposed to traditionally pay out. Should they plan for a 24% decline in their scheduled benefit? Should they not factor Social Security benefits into the retirement income plan at all? Or might they do something else? Well, let's be honest here. Most people rely solely on their Social Security benefits, some auxiliary stuff on the side. But most people require the full check to be able to basically survive. So the problem we're running into is that we have a system of people who are going to not be able to afford food, rent, the upkeep of their costs with their house and the water and the electric, etc. Though I think it is far more likely that some combination of reforms will eliminate the need for cuts of the magnitude the trustees' report suggests. Hear those words, the magnitude the trustees' report suggests. People should be aware of the impact a cut would have on their overall financial situation, says Joe Lasser, a certified financial planner and president of Hobison. What are some of those reforms? Tax increases. We already have extremely high taxes. If we could just audit the government, we might actually be able to find lots of money. They just had 300 million a day literally opened up with the whole Afghan situation. Tax increases, benefit cuts, or combination of both are the oft-mentioned reforms. But to date, there seems little to no interest on the part of the lawmakers to tackle the coming shortfall between incoming revenue and scheduled benefits. What they're saying here is, making a very simple point, is that the Obamas should have fixed this. The Bushes should have fixed this. Trump should have fixed this. Very simply put, Biden, where are you on this? Are you anywhere? Anywhere at all on this? What to do? The implications with Social Security solvency tend to fall on the generational lines, explains Marcia Mantle, a principal with Mantle Retirement Consulting. She agrees with Lasser that Social Security beneficiaries and would-be beneficiaries ought to consider the following actions. They basically go through essentially an analysis of how to go ahead and make sure you have enough money going into retirement. There's a problem here, guys. And I want to make this very clear, and I want to make this kind of straightforward so that everybody understands it. If you are on disability benefits, you will at some point likely transfer onto retirement. If you are essentially SSDI, you'll ride that to 66, 67, and then go to retirement. But I need you to understand this. They are planning on taking the SSDI trust fund and taking all that money and dumping it into the retirement trust fund. And when they do that, the inherent problem with this situation is that is their quick and easy way to make retirement last a little bit longer. But it will significantly hurt in the long run SSDI people from getting the maximum amount of SSDI benefits that they could potentially get. So we got a problem. I wanted to make you aware of it. I hope you guys are doing well. I'm going to be doing another video in the not too distant future where we're going to be doing an analysis on what President Biden, with a $300 million hole in the pocket, could be spending that money on now that we're not spending that inside Afghanistan with our military. Guys, I'll catch you a little bit later. Have a wonderful day, and we'll go from there. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.